Isabel Bishop has worked in this studio overlooking Union Square for over 42 years. During these years, she's come to be recognized as a major American artist, a master of romantic realism. The square and its people have been the major source of her inspiration. What fascinated her in the past were the momentary moods and gestures of the shop girls and hobos who populated the square. Today, it's the haunting movement of anonymous figures who pass below her studio window.
When I came to New York to study, I was 15. I came because my family intended that I should learn a craft and learn to make a living. And I went to a school in which I hoped to learn to be an illustrator. And about the second year of this school, I heard about modern art. And I had never heard about it in Detroit. And I was absolutely fired up. You see, this was now, after the First World War ended. I was here and marched on the street in my smock in 1918, November, when the war ended. I was enamored of New York. Now, don't forget, I came from Detroit, Michigan. And when I came here, I thought, this is a great city. Not just a city, but a great city. I didn't think it was beautiful or mellifluous. I didn't think it was charming. But I felt it was great, just great. And I've felt that ever since. But of course I didn't know then whether I would be painting apples on a plate or people on the street or what. But I felt that way about New York. And so I found that the Art Students League was the place to go. There they had the most far-out artists who each taught in his own way, and they often didn't speak in the halls because they disagreed violently. And from that point, it seemed to me that without doubt I had to be an artist. I mean, an illustrator, what's that? So I had to, and my dear father persuaded a cousin of his to subsidize me as a student, and he went right on subsidizing me through my years of getting started as an artist, which was absolutely wonderful, and of course was crucial. The Art Students League, it remains a unique school, and it has this extraordinary character. Well, I thought it was life itself, and here was modern painting. Why, I thought this is just, nobody could resist pursuing this thing. It's so fascinating, it's so explorative, it's so adventurous, it's so experimental. I went to Max Weber's class. Weber was a doctrinaire modernist, whom I thought was absolutely marvelous. He was painting, it was in his late Cubist style. Marvelous. But what I did didn't please him at all. I didn't stay long with Weber. But I went into Dubois' class, and that was a very interesting experience. Dubois was a very witty painter, but he was a very, very good artist, as well as being witty. He was wonderful on the flappers, very sensuous painter. I was a student chiefly of Kenneth Hayes Miller, who was a very strong man, a very strong influence, and an influence that I had a very hard time emerging from. In his class, you could paint anything, I mean, abstract, or throw the paint at it, or anything, even though his own concepts were that the tradition held everything, that to advance, you had to go back and connect yourself somewhere with the tradition. But nevertheless, he was for experiment. This was a combination that you can see, I think, why it did make a tremendous influence for me. So this was crucial, you know, to me, and made my gradual commitment possible, really. It was a gradual commitment. At first, I was just sort of lighted up. I'll experiment, I'll try. I mean, life is so, heaven knows what it holds, and I'll try this. Perhaps I won't stay with it, but then I gradually became committed to it. When I first was interested in the subject matter in the square, I had a studio on the other side of Fifth Avenue, and I could not see the square from my studio. So in order to work from this material, I had to go down into the square. I didn't have the ambition to delve into the personalities of these hobos that were in the square, but my enjoyment in them was very much the individual physical characteristics and clothes of a particular man. I tried to, as it were, sneak up on them and try to seize on a moment, and out of that to put it into a shape which would be contemplatable. Having taken this on as a subject, this phenomenon of these floating people who don't fit, naturally, anybody who's slightly interested in my work said, well, how come? Why? You're interested in these people? Your background is quite different. Your life is different. I don't see, is this a pose on your part? The point really, for me, was their availability. They were available and they were beautiful. In their ugliness, they were beautiful. I think that what happens in their use of clothes, they're living in the clothes the way they do, that there's an element of style. Oh, of style there that could only be equal to my mind by 57th Street and Fifth Avenue and the high-style women. It's far-fetched, but I think that there is this quality of style in the bum. I got the feeling, well, they are the one true leisure class in America. They thought about the sunlight. One would say, well, I don't want to come in this afternoon. That's beautiful. You know, I can sit out there. And if it was raining, they went into bars, television, and they continually had a bottle in the pocket, which is sort of slightly anesthetized them. And they lived very contented, really, on the whole life, characteristically. Of course, some probably suffered very much, but characteristically, they were contented. The man who was used by many of us and who curiously got to feel dedicated to serving in this way would not take more than 50 cents an hour, and that was enough for him to stay in the Crystal Palace on the Bowery. His name was Mr. Brough, Walter Brough. This picture of Mr. Brough is an investigation on my part of the effort to make a gesture which was a very momentary gesture. He's picking up a cigar from this tree, which seemed to me to have a symmetry that was like a vase, really. I think that it's one of my better little pieces.
Once I lived a life of a millionaire. Spending my money, I didn't care. I carried my friends out for a good time, buying bootleg liquor, champagne and wine.
The only picture I think that came out of that whole period, one I called The Club. And when I got that picture, what I call done, I thought, does that say anything? I thought, it says leaves blown by the wind. And I felt they were leaves blown by the wind. That was because availability is really such a factor. This building has in it small businesses. And again, coming back from Europe, I get most intense impressions here, I think perhaps everyone does when they come back from Europe. I came into the elevator here, and here was a girl standing in the elevator. She looked like an Egyptian, she looked like Queen Nefertiti. And she was very much made up in her eyes, had long earrings, black hair and a tremendous bun behind, and a strapless dress on, which was, that was the period of the strapless dress. So I said to her, I'm right up here, in your lunchtime, could you let me sketch you? Well, she did, with great trepidation. She was very frightened, but she came in. I had a sandwich for her, and she posed me for a long time. The first girls I did use of this general type, I think, were two waitresses at Child's, where I ate on 14th Street. And I asked one to come, and she, being frightened, brought a friend. And that was wonderful, because they together, I think they together for my first experience of two figures. I'd really only worked with one figure alone. And two figures, well, that occupied me for years. It's a motif that I was exploring, mostly two women, because they were more available. I felt I was interested in these women as genre subjects. I wanted to express my sense of their social limitation. Social limitation is expressed by their everything, their gesture, their clothes, but at the same time to suggest the possibility of social movement as I've tried to suggest the possibility of physical movement. I came to feel, through this effort of mine to introduce mobility, that I was open-ending their social situation. If they could move physically, there was a subjective suggestion that they could move in life, which I felt is a characteristic of American life. And I was interested in American life. Always in these things, the momentary aspect, which one aims to put into a form of symmetry, which is contemplatable, at the same time keeping its momentary aspect. Nevertheless, making it contemplatable. Do you see what I mean? In the beginning, when I was interested in the particularization of these subjects, I was not thinking them as moving. I was not aiming at creating in the onlooker a sense that they were moving, but that they were mobile, that they could move, which is quite a different thing. It requires something very different of the modeling of the picture. And it's it seems ironical, and it's something that I didn't know in those days, but have learned gradually, is that mobility and movement are really seldom expressed in the same picture. They're not, you think they could not exist separately or in contradiction to each other, but they do, they can. I've tried to make them, though they were standing still, by the modeling of the picture, make you believe that they could move. You'd have to ask this question of the picture by looking at it. I'd have to have the picture here, and I'd say, look at it and say, move.
Isabel Bishop has worked in this studio overlooking Union Square for over 42 years. During these years, she's come to be recognized as a major American artist, a master of romantic realism. The square and its people have been the major source of her inspiration. What fascinated her in the past were the momentary moods and gestures of the shop girls and hobos who populated the square. Today, it's the haunting movement of anonymous figures who pass below her studio window.
When I came to New York to study, I was 15. I came because I my family intended that I should learn a craft and learn to make a living. And I went to a school in which I hoped to learn to be an illustrator. And but second, at the time of an exhibition of mine, a young poet wrote something which was inspired, he said, by my exhibition, which moved me very much. And I find this so important that I say it to myself often when I come down here in the morning. I look at what I'm working on, I say this poem, and it kind of tests the situation. And this is the poem. Grand Central, let him out, please. Watch the doors. In his own image did he make all men. One ham on rye. I'll have a Coke. What's yours? From Adam's side, our mother moves again. Canarsie, Harlem, Yorktown, and the Narrows, sing, messenger, above the IRT. Who gets the breaks, the outrageous slings and arrows? Is there a voice that calls for her and me? Out, please. Getting out, please. Getting out. All lines are running late to heaven and hell. Warm smells and lights and bodies girt about. Redeem, illumine, and transfigure all. O ever young and ageless Mother Eve, be with us till we take our final leave. I thought this young poet said something that was very important to me. Don't you like this wall? This wall delights me, but I don't look at it when I work. I work with my back to it. I could never face it, but I love it all the same because it symbolizes many things for me. One which I prize, which was an advertisement, and it's very old, is by Edward Muybridge, who preceded the motion picture and made a sensation of persons in motion. But this brings me to think of how it was in my own life. That walking got to be such an important, endlessly fascinating subject to me, and endlessly frustrating too. I have spent most of my life in the city, and I love to be in the city, but occasionally I have visited other ways. Went to Maine one time and stayed a couple of weeks, and while I was there I thought, oh, these beaches, these great stretches of beach in the early morning, and the sky is so magnificent. And when I got to Grand Central, got off the train, and walked out at 42nd Street, I felt, wow, this is an absolute miracle. The people in every direction, myriad. Here, and I'd experiencing the joy of these open spaces with maybe one figure, two figures in it. And here I was confronted with myriad figures moving, all moving in this, what to me, a miraculous way. What were they moving in? They must be moving in something. And suddenly air became real to me. I was struck dumb, really, by the beauty, drama, and miraculous effects of a crowd of people in motion. It seemed magical. And I felt inspired to try to make this happen in some way on a canvas or a panel, so that the spectator will believe that this isn't just described movement, but is movement taking place. Nancy, 3/4 this way, Tear's walking directly away from me. Oh, I'm sorry, Tear. All right, it's that one, in which your left foot will be forward. If you walk from me a little bit and then end up with your left foot forward, but away, as far away from me as you can get, right over by the screen. No, but I don't want you to pose it like that. I want you to walk from me.